Your tenant calls and says, "We love the house, we'd like to buy it." And we want to break down what the heck do you respond with on that today. So many times I think that's a really dream scenario maybe for a tenant or a landlord. They think that's a really great situation. And
Yep.
maybe sometimes it's not. And so let's kind of break that down today because I think a lot of landlords come into that. Potentially, have you seen that happen often?
Well, it's happened every once in a while.
Okay.
More so the tenants are more and they're renting for a reason. They're
Yes.
saving money.
Yes.
They don't have the credit. There's a number of reasons, but many of them they're renting. They maybe moved to a move from out of state. They're
Mm-hmm.
moving in. They want to see where they want to live, and then they're going to buy a house or they're going to build a house. So that's usually our scenario. They're saving money so they can buy or build. That's typically what we're doing, but we have sold a few
Straight to the tenant.
straight to the tenant through the owner doing that directly.
And that's usually probably because maybe the owner feels like potential for the gains have maxed out, maybe like they've had it for
They're
a while,
ready to get out,
ready to do
and
something different with it. A lot of times the tenant loves it because they already know the property, right?
Right.
They've lived in it. They know all the problems with it that
Right.
they might be inheriting and all the things. They don't want to move again because that's really expensive to do that. They feel maybe invested in the home. Maybe, I mean, there's some landlord properties out there that are really nice and they just say, why don't we just stay here? And then they assume they're going to get a better deal if they buy it straight from the landlord.
Absolutely.
Right? So the question that we come across, especially for landlords coming across this situation, maybe they don't have a property manager. They're an accidental landlord. They're doing this on their own. They're trying to get out of it. Should they consider the discount?
That's a loaded question.
It is. That's why we're here for the loaded questions.
Because you got to take emotions out of the deal.
Yes.
You gotta look at it. What is the market level price?
Mhm.
That is the price.
Right.
Now, if you're gonna, there's so many things that come into play when you're looking at selling the house.
Right.
You're going to get an inspection on it. You're going to pay realtor fees.
Yep.
You're gonna have to give seller concessions.
Potentially, yeah.
There's so many things that you got to factor in there. And on the flip side, the tenants are looking, do I want to buy this house or do I want to move?
Mhm.
They don't factor in how much it's going to cost to move me to another house.
Right.
So when that comes into play more on releasing or signing a new contract.
Yes.
But I always make that a point of telling them, you need to factor in all your costs before you decide, well, I can get this one $100 cheaper,
Mhm.
but it may cost you $300 more a month to move.
Right.
So that goes whether you're releasing, re-signing, or buying a house. So
Right.
Those are the things we look at.
And I think for a lot of landlords or sellers at this point, if they're considering selling it, they should have the conversation with the real estate agent to figure out
Yes.
what market price is. Because a lot of times they'll just go to Zillow and go, well, it looks like it's this. And we've talked about that in the past.
Those are plus or minus 30%.
Yes.
I mean, it's
Non-disclosure state,
crazy.
the numbers are not
Yes.
numbers for them to see. It's all private. And so if they go off that price, they're really not knowing what market value could be. And they may get a better qualified buyer if they put it on the open market as
Right.
well. I mean,
Right.
they kind of know all the dirty laundry of their tenants at that point. So it really
Right.
depends on how good of a tenant have they been this
Right.
whole time, because that's probably going to represent how your buying process will be. Sometimes, convenience, I guess, can play into it of accepting a little less money. For some sellers, we see that happen a lot, at least on the resale side on my
Very
end.
stressful
Yes.
situation. So
They don't want to go
they
through
don't
the
wanna go
actual
through that.
process.
Yeah.
The crazy part is if you do the process right, like we have a process that we have when we list a house for sale. And when our clients take our advice, we're under contract within the first 2 weeks. And a lot of that stress is gone. And you're through it in the next 3, and you usually got top dollar. If you go straight to somebody who's already looking for a deal on the front end, they're probably going to try to get a deal on the back end too. And you have no representation usually. You're just trying to make it easy. And a lot of times they end up getting stuck with a bigger headache of having to be a realtor now.
True.
and manage the whole sale. And then what if the whole thing just falls apart? Now you got probably a disgruntled tenant living in your property.
Right.
And then you're trying to sell it later. So, I mean, I always vote expose it to the market because I think you're going to get your best bet by exposing it to, you at least get the most answers that way. But I think there's some times where you have a tenant with really great credit and they're just there temporarily because they were going to go find something else. They fell in love with the property and maybe want a slight discount. I mean, there's options where that could work out really well for all parties.
You can still put it on the market.
Mm-hmm.
You can still give them a price discount,
Yep.
but at least you're starting at a higher selling point than knock off $25,000 for me.
Right. So pros of selling to the tenant for a seller would be no showings, right?
Right.
But honestly, when you're a landlord, you really don't have to manage the showings. The tenant has to, which I always recommend making sure the tenant has left the property at that point. You don't really want to show
It's
a
very
house.
difficult showing a house with the tenant in it.
Yes. You may not have to deal with any vacancy issues
Right.
if you sell straight to the tenant. You potentially have less stress depending on the situation.
Yep.
And it might be an easier transition to just be done with it. I mean, it depends on how done you are with the property, I would say. And if you've already done like a lot of the updates over time or you've been maintaining it for a while and maybe inspections aren't as big of a deal as you think they'd be, but then why not go to open market?
Right.
That's why I just don't understand it. So then the tenant, when you risk of selling to the tenant, not getting full market value, whatever that could be. That's probably, I mean, what kind of a percentage do you think a tenant would want for a discount, for their loyalty, for the convenience? What percentage do you think they'd want off?
In my opinion, you got to take that out.
Mm-hmm.
You might have lived there for 4 years. You've been a great tenant.
Mm-hmm.
But bottom line is you're trying to unload the property. You're trying to get maximized because maybe you need it for another house or you need it for retirement.
Right.
So you're hurting yourself. You may be giving them a good deal, but you may be hurting yourself.
That you could have had on open market.
What you could get at open market. So
qualification issues that you might come across because maybe they don't have great credit or they don't have the savings.
They're renting for a reason.
Yes.
And most of the time it's because they
Can't get a house.
they can't get the house. They don't qualify.
Well, and there's a lot of misconception of a lease to own situation in Texas, and Texas doesn't really have a lease to own program. Like
We get a lot of questions about that, and
Yes.
most of the time it's no, we don't do that.
Right, because there's really no promulgated form for
Right.
lease to own, so there's some wonky way of setting it up, and a lot of times the person setting it up is the one making the most money. Usually, there's so many ways for the tenant to reset the clock. And the time that they've invested in the lease to own process starts over. They lose their money. There's not really a good legal way to do it in Texas.
You better get legal involved.
Yes.
Don't do it yourself.
Don't do it yourself. Yeah, that's a really good point. When life hits hard, late payments, medical bills, job loss, or even the need to move quickly, many homeowners feel trapped. The fastest way out seems to be selling to a cash investor. But that means giving your home away for pennies on the dollar. You don't have to do that. Nearly half of homeowners today are equity rich, and that value belongs to you. With our One Move program, you can unlock that equity immediately, get cash in hand now, and still share in the upside when your home resells. Or, if you'd rather, we'll shop your property to multiple cash buyers so you can choose the best offer instead of settling for one low bid. Go to donedealoffers.com and discover the smarter way to get cash fast without losing the equity you've worked so hard to build.
To those who take the risk, who bet their life savings, their blood, sweat, and tears on a rental property to make a nice place for someone to live and a nice living for themselves. To those who get this call or no call at all. To those who keep adding more properties, it will all be worth it for you and for them. You care about preserving your investments. So do we. Real Property Management.
negotiations can get a little awkward, I would think, with a
Yes.
tenant to a landlord
Yes.
to buy in the house.
You need a middleman in there.
Yes, you need that emotional
Yes.
sponge in between, which is usually the role we
Right.
fill a lot of the times.
Right.
And then emotional expectations. I think they feel like, well, we've done so much for you being a good tenant. Expectations coming back for us getting a deal is there.
Yes.
I could see it getting ugly really quick.
It does. Because I mean, they'll hey, we did these improvements on the house. We didn't even ask you.
Right.
Which goes into a contract issue.
Yep.
Along the way, you're supposed to get approvals for anything you do to the property. So there's a lot of those things come into play, and you just I go back to, I don't care what you've done in the past. It's what
Right.
we're doing now and in the future.
Mm-hmm. So if we were to pick a scenario, I guess, if you were the landlord and you had the house and you're ready to get out of it, would you go to open market or would you sell it to the
Oh, yes.
tenant? Open market.
I'd go open market.
I go open market. But we just know. I feel like you have a better shot at getting a better qualified, more motivated person that's willing to pay closer to full price.
There's one big factor.
What's that?
It's the market. What is the market doing? Like right now, the market's not more in the seller's market.
It's kind of balanced right now.
It's you go through times where, as far as we're concerned, it may take a week to rent a property out, and then the next 6 months from now, it might take 3 or 4 months to rent a property.
So all that money
it really all
lost in
depends.
vacancy.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the typical sales answer is it depends.
It depends. Well, one of my favorite things too is we'll sometimes get accidental landlords who have been leasing it out, who then try to market it to other landlords to pick it up because they're saying, oh, it's got a great rental history, it's blah,
Right.
blah, blah. But the problem is the price doesn't cash flow it anymore unless they're willing to pay for it all in
Right.
cash and they just want those sort of cash flows.
And they're trying to sell to investors, which investors typically try to buy it at 30 to 40% less
Yes.
market value.
Yes.
And that's how they make their money.
Right. So those are your two choices. It may be better to just sell straight to the tenant because you're not going to have to maybe cut as much off the price for
Right.
them versus an investor. But if it's in a great neighborhood with good schools and a first-time home buyer would really, really love it, you probably have a better chance of hitting the open market.
Yes.
Or at least just have the conversation to find out which one makes sense for you.
That's a good phone call.
We are happy to have those kinds of conversations. Anything else that we should look at? I mean, there's always just should you just still keep it as a rental and let them move on with their lives? I mean,
we are very strong on the rental side
yes.
because that's our business. So we're not going to try to talk you out of it,
Right.
but we want to give you the facts so that you can make an educated decision on, is it better to rent it or sell it? And
it comes down to the goal of what they're ultimately trying
Right.
to do. Like if you're trying to retire and pull all your money out of your portfolios and do something else with it, sure. But if you're in your, still in your, your working years and you still have a job and you're just trying to accumulate over time, sometimes it doesn't make
Right.
sense to sell everything off right now.
Right. I mean, I got a good example of one of our owners. He lived in China.
Mm-hmm.
We managed 3 properties for him. And I don't know if you remember 5 or 6 years ago, we had a bunch of tornadoes go through Dallas.
Yes.
And in China, all they heard was Dallas blew away.
Oh, no.
And he started freaking out.
Yeah.
And he called me up and go, I want to sell. And I go, why are you wanting to sell? And he told me about all these tornadoes and everything. And I go, not a single tornado came within 10 or 20 miles of your house.
Right.
Nothing happened to your house. It didn't even rain in those locations. And he goes, I don't care. I want to sell. He just got scared.
Right.
And of course, he put it out. We sold 1 to an investor, and we sold 2 on the open market. And it was just, he panicked. And that's where you got the emotions
Yes.
going in. But he got out because he wanted out. It was time for him to get out.
He was worried about the next tornado coming through,
Yes.
probably.
And but that you have those there's scenarios left and
Yes.
right on each person has their own reason why they want to buy or sell.
Right. No, that makes sense, and, I mean, that's why we have insurance for a reason and
Yes.
all that fun stuff, but, I mean, there are some people that just don't quite understand some of the natural disasters that we have in the area, and they can
Yep.
sound really scary, but a lot of times the amount of people it actually impacts is very, very small
Right.
most of the time. It's just social media makes it seem really, really big, and the news makes it seem really, really
It's
big.
getting worse and worse
Yes, yes. You're like, "That was a
over the
block. It was
years.
one," and that's very sad for the people that experienced it, but it wasn't thousands of people, you
Right.
know? So, but, I mean, it's always interesting to find out why someone truly wants to sell and then making sure we help guide them through the process of what that looks like.
I mean, that's part of our job to try to get into the details and find out, okay, do you really want to sell it, or
Mhm.
you just thinking about it, or rent it, or whatever?
Or do you think the outcome's gonna be different than what truly could happen? Because that's a lot of the time is they think, "Well, if they do XYZ, this will be the outcome," and it's not necessarily that's the straightest path forward for
Right.
them. They could have a completely different outcome. I mean, you have to worry about taxes and,
I mean, there's so many things
yes,
they don't factor in.
right.
And you mentioned taxes. I mean, you got professional photography, you got staging, you got closing costs,
Mhm.
realtor costs, commissions, all those you gotta
Yes.
factor in.
So is it worth maybe cutting yourself at the knees now because something's scaring you, or do you hold on to it for a little bit longer to get the real true equity
Right.
appreciation
Right.
gains from the property? Which a lot of times we see you need at least 7 to 10 years before you truly see those
Correct.
great numbers of appreciation. And I think a lot of people really start to panic around year 3 to 5.
Right.
And it's just before they hit the hockey stick of appreciation.
Right.
So, all right. So, just to recap today, if your tenant wants to buy the house, it does depend on what you want to do with your goals. And, is convenience worth it to you? Where are you at in your stage of life, in your investing timeline? All those fun things. So,
Correct.
see you on the next one.